Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, death slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, bombers. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And, let's go to the Middle East, Iraq and Syria specifically. Look at two stories that came out recently that kind of have some overlap and are interestingly related. And they're two stories about the amount of bombs and killings that the U.S. has done in Syria and Iraq, and then the Russian claims of all the bombing and the killing they have done in Syria of late. And so I thought, rather than doing separate videos, I'd kind of do them together because it paints a pretty interesting picture. So first of all, we have this report that came out that said that the United States dropped 26,171 bombs last year, and that's 20,000 more than were dropped in 2015. So of course, first thing that's notable about that is so much for Obama, the peacemaker, and this idea, first of all, that the liberals have that Obama is some peaceful anti-war president when he's a bloodthirsty warmonger like all the rest. And then we also have the conservative base who are deluded, thinking that Obama is too much of a pussy, and that's not true either. So as usual, the bases are completely deluded. But anyway, let's get back to these numbers. So in the U.S. dropped 12,192 bombs on Syria and 12,095 bombs on Iraq. So I was kind of struck by the fact that the numbers were so close. I mean, the operations seem to be considerably different in Iraq and Syria, and the intensity of ISIS in Syria, I would imagine, would be greater, and yet the number of bombs dropped in both countries is almost identical. So that makes me a little suspicious. There's something a little funny there. And then we get into the fact that the United States dropped these 26,171 bombs last year, and most of them were in Syria and Iraq, but we also have 500 bombs dropped in Libya, a country we're not at war with, 1,337 bombs in Afghanistan, where we're supposedly on the way out of, 34 bombs in Yemen, which again we're not at war with, and 14 bombs in Somalia, where again we're not at war with. And so we can as I've done in a series of my videos, the United States can pretty much bomb the shit out of any place they want on Earth, whether we're at war with them or not. And to break down the numbers, that's 3 bombs every hour, 24 hours a day. So there's Obama, the peacemaker. But then we get to this Russian story. The Russian story, they claim that they have, in the last 6 months, that they have done 17,800 sorties and dropped 71,000 bombs. So incredible numbers. So if you put them together, you're talking about somewhere in the vicinity of over 100,000 bombs dropped on Syria and Iraq in the last year. If you add up these numbers, according to the Russians, they've bombed 700 terrorist training camps, 405 ammo depots, 1,500 pieces of equipment, and have killed 204 field commanders, which I would imagine is hard to verify. And then they've also had 9,000 surrender. And then the really staggering figure is they said they've killed 35,000 terrorists. And I find these numbers interesting. So there's 45,000 terrorists right there, 9,000 surrendered, 35,000 killed, and that's just the Russians. So first of all, it makes me reflect on the fact that I speculated in the past just how many fighters does ISIS have at any point, and there's been speculations of anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000. So the fact that we get these kind of numbers verifies the idea that there is indeed more likely the higher numbers of fighters. But the other part of that too is, of course, with these Russian airstrikes, they're not just going after ISIS. They consider all the forces aligned against Assad as terrorists. So they're the so-called Free Syrian Army, the so-called moderate terrorists. Basically, we're talking about ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So Russian airstrikes killed 35,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So anyway, but once again, like the United States, those numbers are not exactly reliable, and I'm sure a lot of it's bravado, and it'd be really hard to verify those kind of numbers. But anyway, between those two reports, we certainly get a picture of a massive amount of ordnance being dropped in those two countries, claims of massive numbers of terrorists being killed in ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and yet we still have ISIS and Al-Qaeda, at least for now, on their feet. So, bombs away. I'm Useful Idiot. Don't you be one too.